In the neon-soaked landscape of 1980s, pop music stood a fierce perfectionist whose icy stare could freeze careers and whose uncompromising vision redefined what female artists could achieve.
A gift in music and communication, I hope. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are indifferent, doesn't matter.
Annie Lennox, the flame-haired powerhouse behind Eurythmics' groundbreaking electronic anthems, wasn't just a trailblazing musician who shattered gender norms and conquered global charts. She was also a woman who possessed razor-sharp opinions about the music industry's direction and integrity. Welcome to another episode of Offstage Tales, where today we're exploring the cutting world of Annie Lennox and the 6 bands that reportedly triggered her legendary wrath.
Feels like time stopped still for a moment, just to kind of take a breath and acknowledge the influence of the Beatles. And I mean, you know, Paul and Ringo were there with their family, and it was...
The Scottish icon behind masterpieces like Sweet Dreams and Here Comes the Rain Again was notorious for her exacting standards that apparently left several major acts in her crosshairs. "Excellence isn't negotiable," Lennox once declared to smash hits in 1984. "Too many people settle for mediocrity and call it success." And for Lennox, quite a few chart toppers had committed that ultimate sin. From brutal industry confrontations to scathing public dismissals, Lennox's clashes with these musicians reveal not just personal animosity, but fundamental disagreements about artistic responsibility and creative authenticity. Some of these conflicts erupted during television interviews, others simmered behind recording studio doors, but all of them exposed the fierce intelligence that made Annie Lennox both respected and feared. So adjust your attitude and brace yourself for some devastating revelations. 6. Bananaama. Kicking off our countdown at number 6 is a rivalry that exposed the brutal realities of female competition in 1980s pop, Bananaama. Annie Lennox's contempt for the British trio wasn't just professional jealousy, it was a fundamental disagreement about how women should present themselves in the music industry.
Incredibly strident individuals that, you know, that were very rigorous about what they wore and how they lived their lives.
The conflict reportedly erupted in 1983 when both acts were dominating MTV rotation through completely different approaches. According to former Eurythmics manager John Reed, Lennox once watched Bananaama's Cruel Summer video and told her team, "They're playing dress-up dolls for male executives. It's everything I've been fighting against." What triggered Lennox wasn't their harmonies or dance moves, but their perceived willingness to be molded by industry forces. While Lennox had battled for creative control and artistic respect, Bananaama was achieving international success with what Lennox reportedly called manufactured femininity and pop confection designed by committee. "Women in music have to be twice as good to get half the credit," Lennox told The Face magazine in 1984, in what many interpreted as a direct challenge to acts like Bananaama, who she felt undermined that struggle. The rivalry intensified when both groups were competing for British Female Act recognition. At a 1984 industry awards ceremony, witnesses claim Lennox deliberately ignored the trio during photo opportunities, later telling journalists, "I won't validate approaches that set women back decades." Bananaama members seemed bewildered by Lennox's hostility, later calling her talented but bitter in interviews. But for Lennox, Bananaama represented a dangerous precedent, women sacrificing artistic credibility for commercial appeal, reinforcing industry stereotypes rather than challenging them. 5. Wham. At number 5, we encounter a clash that defined the battle between artistic depth and pure commercial calculation. Wham. Annie Lennox's disdain for George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley wasn't about their talent. It was about their deliberate embrace of superficiality in an era demanding musical substance. The feud reportedly ignited in 1983 when both acts were ascending the British charts through vastly different philosophies. According to former BBC Radio 1 DJ Mike Redd, Lennox once heard Club Tropicana and told him, "They've turned music into a holiday brochure. Where's the intelligence? Where's the challenge to listeners?" What infuriated Lennox wasn't their catchy melodies, but their approach to artistry. While Lennox was crafting complex electronic landscapes with meaningful social commentary, Wham was achieving massive success with what Lennox reportedly called disposable entertainment for people who don't want to think and musical fast food.
One-hit single or a one-hit album is not what it's really all about. And for me, it's basically, I love making music.
Pop music has the power to change minds, not just move bodies, Lennox told Melody Maker in 1984, in what insiders recognized as a pointed critique of Wham's escapist philosophy. The rivalry reached its peak when both acts were competing for Top of the Pops appearances. At a 1984 television studio encounter, witnesses claim Lennox refused George Michael's attempt at friendly conversation, later telling her manager, "I don't discuss craft with people who treat it like a game." Michael seemed genuinely hurt by Lennox's coldness, later calling her unnecessarily harsh in interviews. But for Lennox, Wham represented everything wrong with pop's direction, prioritizing instant gratification over lasting impact, shallow pleasure over meaningful connection, and commercial success over artistic responsibility. Fourth, Spandow Ballet. At number 4, we dive into a confrontation that exposed the tension between authentic innovation and shameless trend chasing, Spandow Ballet. Lennox's disgust with the London Quintet wasn't about their new romantic styling. It was about their complete abandonment of musical substance in favor of fashion magazine aesthetics. The tension reportedly began in 1981, when both acts emerged from London's club scene with radically different priorities. According to former Blitz Club regular Steve Strange, Lennox once watched Spandow Ballet perform and told fellow musicians, "They've confused being in a band with being in a photo shoot. Music has become their afterthought." What enraged Lennox wasn't their synthesizer use, but their priorities.
This is a profession. You have to be professional. I lived it. So every day when I woke up, I knew I have a gig to do.
While Lennox was pioneering electronic music with sophisticated arrangements and provocative themes, Spandow Ballet was achieving chart success with what Lennox reportedly called style magazines set to a drum machine and fashion shows masquerading as concerts. Innovation requires risk, not just wardrobe changes, Lennox told NME in 1982, in what many interpreted as a scathing indictment of the new romantic movement's superficiality. The rivalry escalated when both groups were competing for European recognition. At a 1983 London venue, witnesses claim Lennox walked out during Spandow Ballet's soundcheck, later telling venue staff, "I won't share a stage with people who think looking good equals being good." Tony Hadley seemed confused by Lennox's hostility, later describing her as talented but pretentious in interviews. But for Lennox, Spandow Ballet represented the death of musical integrity, replacing artistic evolution with costume changes, meaningful lyrics with empty posturing, and genuine creativity with calculated image construction designed purely for magazine covers. 3. Culture Club. Number 3 brings us to perhaps Lennox's most personal battle, Culture Club. The conflict between Annie Lennox and Boy George wasn't just about music. It was a fierce disagreement about gender expression and the responsibility that comes with breaking social barriers. The feud reportedly erupted in 1982 when both artists were challenging gender norms through different approaches. According to former Eurythmics stylist Stevie Stewart, Lennox once watched Culture Club's "Do You Really Want to Hurt Me" video and told her team, "He's turned gender fluidity into a carnival act. This isn't liberation, it's exploitation."
Gender, the feminine gender, we can connect through our gender and try to empower each other that way.
When you had...
What triggered Lennox wasn't George's cross-dressing, but what she perceived as his motivations. While Lennox had battled genuine identity questions, Culture Club was achieving fame with what Lennox reportedly called drag performance designed for mainstream consumption and androgyny as marketing gimmick. Breaking gender barriers means something when it comes from truth, not shock value, Lennox told Interview magazine in 1983, in what insiders recognized as a devastating critique of George's theatrical persona. The rivalry reached boiling point when both acts were competing for LGBTQ+ community support. At a 1984 charity event, witnesses claim Lennox refused to appear alongside Culture Club, later telling organizers, "I won't legitimize someone who treats serious identity issues like costume parties." George seemed genuinely wounded by Lennox's rejection, later calling her judgmental and cold in interviews. But for Lennox, Culture Club represented dangerous trivialization, turning authentic gender exploration into entertainment spectacle and exploiting social progress for commercial gain. 2. The Human League. At number 2, we encounter Lennox's most technically driven vendetta, the Human League. This wasn't about image or philosophy. It was about the soul of electronic music itself, and who deserved credit for pioneering the synthesizer revolution. The conflict reportedly began in 1981, when both acts were dominating the electronic music landscape through vastly different methods. According to former Virgin Records executive Simon Draper, Lennox once heard, "Don't you forget about me," and told him, "They're using machines like jukeboxes. There's no artistry, just programming by numbers." What infuriated Lennox wasn't their commercial success, but their creative process. While Lennox and Dave Stewart were crafting intricate electronic compositions with personal emotional depth, the Human League was achieving chart dominance with what Lennox reportedly called factory-produced synth pop and computer music for people afraid of real innovation. "Synthesizers are instruments, not shortcuts," Lennox told Keyboard magazine in 1983, in what many interpreted as a direct attack on the Human League's producer-heavy approach. The rivalry intensified when both groups were being credited as electronic music pioneers. At a 1983 Technology Expo, witnesses claim Lennox deliberately avoided the Human League's demonstration area, later telling her sound engineer, "I won't be associated with people who mistake programming for playing."
Going on like, the extremes between being immensely happy and looking towards the beauty in life, and then knowing that underneath it all is sort of...
Phil Oakey seemed oblivious to Lennox's contempt, later praising Eurythmics' technical sophistication in interviews. But for Lennox, the Human League represented the industrialization of creativity, replacing human expression with mechanical precision, artistic vision with market research, and genuine electronic innovation with assembly line production methods. 1. Tears for Fears. And finally, at number 1, we reach the most shocking revelation of all. Tears for Fears. Yes, the introspective duo reportedly earned Annie Lennox's ultimate contempt in what became the most intellectually vicious rivalry of the 1980s. The feud reportedly began in 1983 when both acts were exploring psychological themes through completely different lenses. According to former studio engineer Hugh Padgham, Lennox once heard "Mad World" and told him, "They're treating therapy like a trend. Real emotional depth doesn't come with a psychology textbook." What disgusted Lennox wasn't their musical ability, but their approach to mental health themes. While Lennox channeled genuine personal struggles into her art, Tears for Fears was achieving critical acclaim with what Lennox reportedly called pseudo-intellectual posturing and emotional tourism for middle-class audiences. So there you have it. Even pop perfectionists have their sworn enemies. Was Annie Lennox defending artistic integrity or just impossibly demanding? Which feud stunned you most? Hit subscribe, drop your thoughts below, and ring that notification bell for more music drama.